Hi everyone, Janie here. Welcome back to my garden. So my gardening task for today is deadheading. I definitely need to do this. I definitely have a bunch of faded blooms around my garden, which is totally fine. It's totally normal and expected. It's just something that you have to do. You have to go around and you have to deadhead your flowers. So I have a bunch of foxglove I need to deadhead. My peonies, they're pretty much done, which that was so short and sweet, but that's okay. My Eden climbing roses I need to deadhead, and then a bunch of other little things. So I thought I would take you all along with me as I kind of scanned my garden and decided what I needed to clean up and what I needed to deadhead. So deadheading is actually really important to us as gardeners because it will continue the bloom cycle. It will continue the blooms coming from that plant. So think about it. A plant's whole goal in life is to reproduce, is to continue developing plants and having more plants come. So how plants reproduce is by setting seed. And so for us as gardeners, we don't want the plant to set seed. We want the plant to bloom. We want to enjoy the flowers. So if we break that plant cycle and we cut off the old bloom where it's going to be setting seed soon, then that plant is going to get frustrated and it's going to send up more blooms so it can complete its life cycle of setting seed. So basically, we're just being mean to the plant. I'm very sorry, plant, but we need blooms as gardeners. So the other important reason to deadhead plants is to prevent diseases. Think about with roses, if you have petals that are fading and have kind of fallen on other parts of the rose, it can cause fungal diseases or rot or mold or anything like that. And that's the same with all of your plants. That's also the same with one and done flowers. So there are some types of flowers that are one and done. They basically bloom once and then they're totally finished. You still want to deadhead those, not only because it looks better for the plant, but also it prevents disease. So you just want to make sure that everything's nice and clean in your garden. Now the plants that you don't need to deadhead, there are some of those that you kind of want to think about. And like a sedum, where you want the bloom head to dry, to mature and dry, and we're appreciating that bloom head. You obviously don't want to deadhead something like a sedum. Or like a purple hyacinth bean. If you deadheaded a purple hyacinth bean and took all those beautiful flowers off, then that purple hyacinth bean would not develop those beautiful waxy seed pods, right? It's done its job, it's developed seed, but part of what we love about purple hyacinth bean are its seed pods. Also, a lot of plants have been bred to be sterile, and being sterile means they do not produce seed. So the poor plant has been absolutely, mutated to the point where it's not producing seed. So the poor plant keeps sending out blooms because it keeps trying to complete its life cycle and set seed, and it just isn't doing it. And a lot of proven winners plants that I have in my garden are sterile and do not set seed and thus do not need to be deadheaded. So that's one thing that I really like about supertunias in particular. Petunias are known for needing to be deadheaded super, super often. Supertunias are bred to be sterile, so they will never set seed, and that's why they keep sending up blooms. So it just makes our lives as gardeners easier, and I don't have to worry about most of my annuals because a lot of my annuals are proven winners and they're bred to be sterile. But there are other plants in my garden that I do have to worry about and I have to pay attention to. So my supplies for today are pretty easy. I just have my pruners right here that I'm going to use for pruning all of my plants. I am going to be going from plant to plant to plant. And what you want to do, best practices, if you go from plant to plant to plant with one set of pruners, you want to disinfect them in between each plant. Now, I can't be bothered to disinfect in between every single plant. What I will do is I will disinfect before I go for my roses, and probably before I go for my peonies, just to be extra safe with those two plants because those are pretty special plants. But like I said, best practice is to disinfect. For disinfecting, I just use these. Obviously, that's pretty easy. You can use like Lysol or like a bleach solution, or sometimes I have alcohol wipes. So I'll use alcohol wipes too, but I just had those handy. Then I have a kneeling pad. Then this is embarrassing. Look at this thing. It is so time for a new one. This is my pop-up bag from Fiskars. I really, really love this thing. I did get a bigger version of this and I don't like it anywhere near as much. I think this is the 10-gallon one. And then I also got the 30-gallon one. I could see the 30-gallon one being really great for if you had a bunch of leaves and you were putting the leaves in there. But for my purposes, this is totally the right size for me. I'll see if I can find it and link it down below. All right, so I think I'll get started in my crepe myrtle garden bed. Let me just go through and show you guys kind of what I'm seeing, what I want to deadhead. I can see some of my geraniums need to be deadheaded. That should be pretty easy. Some of my heliotrope needs to be deadheaded. Just a couple of those right there. Oh, look at that. That needs to be deadheaded big time. My calla lilies need to be deadheaded as well. So I will work on those. Then, sadly, my foxgloves are done. This is just one of my favorite flowers in the garden. They might send up a second bloom stalk. Sometimes they do, but in my experience, once I trim this main bloom stalk off, the second one is like really short and maybe has like 1 or 2 blooms on it and that's it. So these are pretty much done for the season, but that's okay. I got a lot of enjoyment out of them. You can see over here, I have some more calla lilies that I need to deadhead. These will keep sending up new ones for a while. Can you guys see right there? There's a new bloom right there. These foxgloves right here, this little patch was really late to bloom and I'm not sure why. It must have been like the shade or something like that. So these are just starting to bloom right now. So I'm excited about that. I'll have another flush of foxgloves right there. So at least I have those while the ones on the other side are all finished. And then I think that's it. I think that's all I have. Look at my Veronica. Isn't that looking pretty? So when you deadhead geraniums, the important thing is that you want to deadhead them as close to the leaf node as possible. So you can see this one is done. I want to go all the way back here until this stem reaches, oh, see, it goes all the way down there. So I want to try and get it as close as possible. The purpose of deadheading in that way and not just cutting it off right below the bloom head is you're going to keep your geraniums more compact and not allow them to get as leggy. If you snip them off all the way up here, they will keep growing like more and more stems below their bloom head and your geranium will start looking a little bit leggy. So this is one that you want to cut as close to the node as possible. And usually if they're ready to be deadheaded, you can kind of just pull it off. Okay, then if you're looking at deadheading calla lilies, same thing. You want to go all the way down as close to the foliage as you possibly can and trim it. Some people say that you want to trim this at a 45-degree angle. You guys see that? Just like that. Okay, then if you are going to deadhead your foxgloves, one thing you can do is you can leave it. You can leave these up. These have millions of seeds in them and you can kind of shake them and try and get them to reseed itself. So that's something that's, you know, a good reason to leave them up until they're basically done. I usually don't have much luck with reseeding, especially in this garden bed. I might have better luck this year with this new mulch, but I don't really care. I kind of just want to deadhead them. I have so many of these seeds and they're so easy for me to start. So I kind of like starting fresh each year. So with these, same thing. You just want to take the stem, follow the stem as close you can to the foliage, and then you just want to snip it. Just like that. so all done with the crepe myrtle garden bed. It's looking nice and clean. I'm gonna come right over here now. I have a bunch of foxgloves that I need to deadhead over here in this garden bed. You can see over there, those are done. I have some anemones right here that I have to deadhead, and I actually think I'm just gonna pull them. I just have a little patch right here. You can save your anemone corms. You absolutely can. I did last year. I found the ones I saved didn't come back as well. Probably just because I didn't leave them in the ground long enough, but I just don't have any patience for that. And this is a weed, obviously. So I'm just gonna completely pull these. My Shasta daisies are ones that I definitely deadhead, but they all look pretty fresh and new. Oh, look, how cute. There's another one right there. How cute. So yeah, so I don't have to do any Shasta daisies. I do have some iceberg roses that I just need to go in, and just a couple of them, not too bad. Yeah, I have some Euryops right here. You don't have to deadhead these high noon Euryops. It's not gonna stop it from blooming. I just think it looks nicer when I deadhead these. So I'm gonna go ahead and deadhead those as well. I think that that's it over here in this garden bed. Doesn't this all look so good? I'm loving it. I think there's a gardener starting across the street, so I'm gonna hurry and talk to you guys. So over here, this is my Helen von Stein lamb's ear. I grow this for the foliage. I do not grow it for the flowers. The flowers aren't very pretty. The pollinators love them, but I have enough pollinator plants here. So what I'm gonna do is I wouldn't even call this deadheading because it's not dead, but I do prune off the bloom stalks from here. So I just kind of go straight down as far as I can and then cut them off like that. Pretty easy. And they really only bloom certain times of the year, like spring, and then they kind of calm down a little bit after that. I have used these bloom stalks in flower arrangements. I just kind of pulled the bottom two leaves off, and I'll stick them in flower arrangements, and they're beautiful and they last so long. So that's something that you can do with these, and it makes it, you know, kind of like double duty. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now, I'm gonna clean my pruners, and then I'm gonna come over here to my gorgeous Eden Rose arch. You can see it is time to kind of clean it up a little bit, and I am just going to deadhead the spent flowers. So how I'm going to do it, I don't want to say old fashioned, the classic way to deadhead your roses is to go down to a leaf node that has 5 leaves, and really 5 leaves that are pointing outwards so that the rose grows outwards. But there's actually been a lot of research that's been going on that says that you can just prune right down to the first leaf and it's completely fine. It doesn't matter. So I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm just going to go through and I'm going to prune off all the dead ones. You know, you can see this one I got to prune off. I am going to clean up all the petals down here because I don't want any like funguses or diseases or anything growing on my roses. Knock on wood, but my roses have been totally aphid free and disease free this year, which is probably why they look so good. I am planning on doing a video soon about what I do for these roses because I've been getting a lot of questions for that. Yeah, so I'll get to that in another video. That should come out hopefully later this week, maybe next week or something like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do my Eden climbers. And then after that, I'm gonna come over here to my bearded iris and address these. So these are totally done. If you're gonna deadhead a bearded iris, you can just take off one flower at a time and it'll keep sending up other flowers. You can see this bloom stalk right here sent up 1, 2, 3 flowers. I have been slacking and I haven't been deadheading them. So they are all officially done at this point. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to trim off or deadhead the entire bloom stalk and cut it down here. And that will clean it up. That will allow all the leaves to soak in some sun and then be able to bloom again beautifully next year. Can you guys see this white butterfly in my garden? Ugh! Cabbage moth or whatever you want to call it. Once you start seeing those, you know you're gonna get budworms. Ugh, time to spray. All right, all done with the roses. I got most of the petals cleaned up. I still have a couple more I have to get in there, do final touches. But I went through and I deadheaded all the ones that I thought looked old. So I am planning to deadhead while they're in bloom. They technically bloom. They flush in and out of bloom every 6 weeks. So while they're in bloom, I am planning to do this every week, like put it on schedule every week. That's the recommendation by Monty Don. So of course we have to follow his recommendation. You know, goal is once a week. We'll see if that actually happens. I did cut back most of my bearded iris. There was one more. One more is gonna bloom. I have one more to enjoy, but I cut back the rest of those. And then I came down into my cottage garden and I deadheaded my peonies, specifically my Shirley Temple peonies. They were about done. I have 2 left. They're incredible. They're so beautiful. And then I have this Junior Walker Nepeta or catmint. I might have overplanted this. I might have. There's bees all over it. They absolutely love it, but it's starting to kind of like burst out of its spot, which is what I wanted for my cottage garden. This is the exact look I wanted for my cottage garden, but I didn't want it to smother the Nemesia or the Sweet Alyssum right there. So I did cut some of it back. Here is my Dr. Alexander Fleming peony. There's my hand. Isn't that incredible? And then a couple more right here. Oh my gosh, you guys. So I definitely need some peony rings. I didn't think about that this year. Honestly, I did not think they were gonna bloom this year, but I will plan on that next year, putting some peony rings up for at least both of these guys, Dr. Alexander Fleming and Shirley Temple. Here is Bowl of Beauty. This is my Bowl of Beauty one. Looks like I have something. I don't know what that is. I'll have to look into that. But this one did not bloom this year, and I don't think it is going to bloom this year. I planted this one with tubers, and I planted them last January, not this past January, but the January before. So we will see how they do next year. I'm honestly not expecting them to bloom next year either. Maybe the year after that they will start blooming. Dr. Alexander Fleming and Shirley Temple, I got like a plant from Home Depot, and so that's why those guys are blooming so well. And then Bartzella, of course, bloomed. It had 2 blooms on it, but I'm just happy that it even had any blooms this year, because I did transplant this one this December or January, somewhere around there. So yeah, so you can see this is all looking beautiful. It's all cleaned up and deadheaded, and I mean, it's not perfect, but it's close enough, right? It's as perfect as I need my garden to be. My Thunbergia is starting to grow, and then I've finished everything else. So I hope this motivated all of you to get out into your garden and deadhead your plants. There is a good reason to deadhead. It's not just to make your garden look pretty and look clean, but it also is to keep the plants going with their life cycle, so they keep trying to reproduce, they keep trying to reproduce seeds, and they're gonna keep giving you blooms all season long. So don't be afraid to deadhead. Don't feel like you're gonna be hurting the plant. I know I hate deadheading my roses because I feel like I'm not gonna have more blooms. I just have to keep telling myself, this is how we're gonna get more blooms. This is how the plant is gonna keep sending out new flowers for us to enjoy. So I hope you all enjoyed this, and I hope you all have a chance to get in your garden today.